Hi everyone and welcome to Green Monk TV. My guest on the show this week is Rich Lechner. We're going to talk today about transportation. Transportation is of course one of the largest contributors of greenhouse gases and IBM have thought a lot about transportation and ways to reduce the impact of transportation on greenhouse gases. Rich, you were at a conference this week in Detroit, a city which is uniquely focused on transportation. What are some of your takeaways from that?
Well, I think so you're right. First of all, transportation is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emission, but it's also, a huge economic impact the way it's currently implemented. It's estimated in the U.S. that congested roadways cost us about $78 billion per year in terms of wasted gasoline and wasted work hours as people are stuck in traffic. So it's very much it's every bit as much an economic issue as it is a sustainability or green issue.
So $78 billion wasted just in traffic congestion
in the U.S. alone, and that's based on over 3.5 billion lost work hours and over 2.3 billion wasted gallons of gasoline as cars are sitting there idling in traffic.
And that gasoline is obviously converted to CO2.
Exactly. And then in some cases, a significant amount of the congestion is just people, circling around the block looking for a place to park. So it's not even just getting from point A to B, but it's then once you've gotten to your destination, finding some place to deposit your vehicle. So it's clearly a big issue. And in the sort of traditional way that we've tried to, in the U.S. and other parts of the world, we've tried to address this is let's just lay more pavement. Let's pour more concrete, widen the roads, and that's really not. It's neither the economic sensible way to do it, nor the ecologically sensible way to do it. The similarities to me between the transportation issues and the use of our transportation infrastructure and IT are pretty startling if you think about it. It's just as we had this proliferation of distributed systems and utilization rate. We wake up 10 years later, find out the utilization rate is 3% or 4%, and incredibly poor utilization of the assets, and this notion of we'll just keep adding assets. Well, that's the way we've been building our road systems around the world, and it's just not a sustainable process. So
what are some better alternatives?
So we've been focusing on this notion of intelligent transportation systems, and what we mean by that is this notion of let's leverage the increasing intelligence and interconnectedness of devices, the instrumentation of devices, whether you're talking about the physical infrastructure, the roads themselves, the bridges, the traffic signals, or the vehicles that populate those roads. And by putting more intelligence into those systems, we can fundamentally change the way the system works and make it more intelligent. Because if you think about it, a typical road system where there is intelligence today, it's a binary system. You pull up to a traffic signal, and there's a metal plate under the road that sort of indicates whether there's a vehicle on top of me or not. And that's as smart as it gets, right? So it's about putting not only more instrumentation in there, but into the infrastructure, but making that instrumentation more intelligent and doing something with it.
So is that like using cars that have GPS transceivers as opposed to just receivers built into them, so they're transmitting their location and then identifying where congestion is building up as a result of that, and adjusting maybe traffic light signals accordingly?
Exactly right. So part of this is the most sort of there are multiple aspects of an intelligent transportation system. You have this notion of road user charging and tolling to try and send pricing signals to the drivers as to to sort of discourage the use of private transportation in certain congested areas. That itself, we can come back to that, but that itself can be done in a very simple way or a more sophisticated way. You have fare management systems to try and promote the use of public transportation of all types, whether it be metro, rail systems, buses, taxis, etc. And you have this transportation information management, which is sort of what you were referring to, and that's the idea of sending information to drivers about where congestion is, but not only where it is now, but where it's going to be. In Singapore, they've implemented this predictive analysis system where they can, up to an hour ahead of time, with 90% accuracy, they can tell where congestion will occur. And as a consequence, they then begin to send signals to the drivers. And that can be via road signs that sort of flash. It can be via information that's transmitted in messages to cell phones or to GPS systems, smart GPS systems in cars. And it's not just a textual information that says, avoid this area because the traffic will be building here. Use this route instead, but also sending pricing signals. So if you have a road charging system, you can, in a place like Singapore, they can adjust the price on an hour by hour, even half hour by half hour basis, based on where do they want people to go to try and avoid the congestion. So it's this predictive analysis, and of course that takes, as you might imagine, tons of data coming from vehicles and from sensors in the permanent infrastructure. It takes deep analytics to be able to do that predictive analysis, reroute the traffic, and then predict where the next congestion is going to occur as a consequence. So but to do that with 90% accuracy is pretty amazing.
You mentioned making the cars smarter as well. Is that just building in the smart GPS, or are there other things you can do to cars?
So there's several things, independent of the fuel aspects of this, but just looking and setting that aside for a second. So just thinking about intelligence in the vehicles, there's several categories. First, you're seeing more and more intelligence in terms of collision avoidance systems, right? So whether it be helping you park or braking assist when the car detects that you're getting too close to the vehicle in front of you. So there's those sorts of technologies to help avoid accidents, which of course are a primary source of these sorts of issues. Secondly, there's information in intelligence to automatically notify authorities when an accident occurs, right? And we see that here in the U.S. We have a system called OnStar that is in many cars. So it will automatically, when airbags deploy or when a collision is detected, automatically notifies authorities. So there's that sort of thing. But to your point, there's also more intelligence in terms of receiving signals from the traffic infrastructure, whether that be where traffic's going to be occurring, pricing signals, but also things like being notified of where parking spaces are available. So in the city of San Francisco, for example, they're implementing smart parking meters. And in London, we've actually done this in London as well, where there are parking places that will notify where when it is available, right? So people can then cars can be notified of there's a space available on this block, right? And then of course the issue is how do you deal with this massive rush of people trying to get that spot. And you can think of all sorts of business models associated with that, by the way, that some you might have premium class subscribers who get notified of the parking spaces seconds or minutes ahead of those who are base subscribers, right? But those are some of the examples of the kind of intelligence that's in the cars to be able to receive this information from the more intelligent infrastructure around it.
Whatever approaches are taken, we're definitely in a period right now where we're seeing massive changes in the transportation infrastructure because the way we're doing it right now is absolutely not sustainable. Right.
Yeah, and again, the good news is, I think, is that if there's any good news out of this economic, crisis that we're in, is that at any time of tight economic times, you re-examine the way you're building your infrastructure, and we can't continue to just, like I say, lay roads at millions of dollars per mile, right? Instead, we need to think about a more intelligent way of leveraging the assets we already have. And so I think this economic environment is actually accelerating the focus on how can we make this infrastructure more intelligent, make better use of the assets we already have.
Super, Rich. Thanks a million for coming on the show. Great as always.